There is a simple oil sold in many grocery stores for around $3 that some people believe can help eye bags look smaller overnight, make the skin under the eyes feel firmer, and slowly soften the look of dark circles while you sleep. One tiny bottle can last for months if you use it a little at a time each night. The reason people talk about it comes down to a few basic actions. It may help support lymph flow, which can reduce the fluid that gathers under the eyes. It may help support tiny blood vessels in that delicate area so they are less likely to leak and leave behind dull color. And it may feed the skin with nutrients that support smoother texture over time, helping the area look less tired and less hollow. This is not some flashy new beauty trend. Versions of this idea have been floating through skincare talk for years, with studies and traditional remedies often pointing to visible changes in puffiness and discoloration when certain plant oils are used regularly. But simple fixes do not always fit the modern beauty business. Expensive jars do, complicated ingredient lists do, monthly repurchases do, and that is why a low-cost remedy with a loyal following can stay in the shadows while shelves fill up with glossy products and bold promises. If this kind of story grabs your attention, stay with me, because the part most people skip is where the real picture begins. It is not in a luxury store. It is not behind a glass counter. It starts much earlier in old plant medicine, in household use, in records written long before modern beauty brands learned how to turn a basic routine into a forever purchase. And once you see that pattern, the whole under-eye industry starts to look very different. Centuries ago, in old herbal records from Europe, writers described a dark berry tree whose oil was used under the eyes to calm swelling, reduce shadowy color, and freshen the skin around the eye socket. They were talking about elderberry seed oil, pressed from the tiny seeds inside the deep purple fruit of the black elder tree, a plant that had grown wild across fields, hedges, riverbanks, and forest edges for longer than most people could trace. Those old writers were not inventing the idea. They were writing down what everyday healers already knew, and those healers were not the first either. Similar uses appeared again and again across old medical traditions in different parts of the world. In one place, it was used for swelling, in another for irritated tissue. Somewhere else, it was valued for what people believed it could do for stagnant fluid and weak vessels around the eye area, different cultures, different languages, different times, yet the same plant kept showing up in the same kind of remedy. That kind of overlap gets attention, not because it proves perfection, but because people do not return to the same ingredient over generations for no reason. They return because something about it keeps getting results they can see, and that is where this story stops being just folklore and starts feeling more interesting. Because when an old remedy keeps surviving while trends come and go, the next question becomes obvious. What is really happening under the skin? What is the actual problem under the eyes? And why do so many expensive products seem to dance around it instead of dealing with it directly? Keep going, because once the biology comes into view, the whole thing becomes much easier to understand and much harder to ignore. Eye bags usually show up because of three overlapping processes, and most people are sold products that only touch the surface instead of dealing with those deeper causes. The first is slow lymph flow. The area under the eyes holds a fine network of channels that help move extra fluid away from the tissue. When that flow slows down because of sleep position, allergies, age, stress, irritation, or simple inflammation, fluid starts to sit where it should not. That is when the under eye area looks swollen, heavy, and puffy in the mirror, especially first thing in the morning. The second issue is fragile capillaries. The tiny blood vessels under the eyes are among the most delicate in the whole body. Over time, stress, age, and oxidation can weaken them. When that happens, a small amount of blood-related pigment can leak into the surrounding tissue, and as it breaks down, it can leave behind a darker bluish-brown tone that makes the area look bruised, tired, or permanently shadowed. The third problem is collagen loss. The skin under the eyes is extremely thin, far thinner than skin on most other parts of the face. As collagen drops with age, that thin layer becomes even more transparent. The fat beneath it becomes easier to see. The support structure becomes weaker. The surface starts to look hollow in some places and puffy in others, so what you are seeing is often not one simple issue. It is fluid, it is vessel weakness, it is thinning tissue. Three problems stacked together, and here's where this gets interesting. The reason elderberry seed oil keeps getting talked about is that people claim it may help all three at once. Not with magic, not in one night forever, but through several actions working together while the area is resting. This oil contains plant compounds and fatty acids that are often discussed for their possible support of delicate skin. People who study plant chemistry often point to flavonoids in elderberry, especially the kinds linked with helping vessel walls stay stronger and less leaky. The idea is simple. Stronger capillaries may leak less. Less leaking may mean less leftover pigment settling into the under eye area. And if that happens over time, dark circles can start looking a little lighter from underneath instead of just being covered from above. Some of the compounds connected to elderberry are also discussed for their possible role in supporting lymph movement. That matters because better lymph tone means fluid does not just sit there night after night, turning into morning puffiness. It gets moved, it drains, the bag looks smaller. Then there is the oil itself, rich in fatty acids that help nourish dry, thin skin. Those oils do not instantly rebuild the face, but they can support the skin barrier, help the area feel softer, and create a better environment for smoother looking texture over time. And that combination is what makes the story so compelling to people. One low-cost oil, several possible actions, a routine so simple it almost feels too simple for the beauty world to take seriously. But stay with me, because this is where the story usually branches in two directions. One side is the practical side, what to do, how to use it, what results people hope for. The other side is the business side, the part that asks why a very cheap, very basic option never seems to get center stage while eye creams priced like luxury goods keep getting launched year after year. And once that question lands, it is hard not to see the sales machine behind the mirror. The under eye market is huge. People spend serious money trying to fix a problem that is emotional as much as it is cosmetic. Puffiness makes people feel older. Darkness makes them look more tired than they are. Hollow skin under the eyes can make the whole face seem worn down, even when the rest of the skin looks fine. That fear sells. So the market answers with jars, serums, rollers, patches, and creams that promise brightness, lift, firmness, recovery, and instant refresh. The average product is not cheap. Some cost enough to make you pause, but not enough to stop the sale, and that is the key. Expensive enough to feel premium, small enough to run out quickly, effective enough to keep hope alive, temporary enough to keep you buying. That cycle matters, because a single $3 bottle that lasts for months does not fit that system very well. You cannot build a glamorous repeat buy machine around one modest little oil unless you rename it, perfume it, package it in frosted glass, and triple the price. You cannot easily make a natural plant oil feel exclusive when people can buy it without stepping into a department store. So instead, the shelves get filled with long ingredient lists and polished language that sound advanced, even when the practical result is still limited. To be fair, many eye creams do contain real ingredients with real benefits. Some hydrate well, some brighten a little, some smooth fine lines temporarily. But what people find frustrating is that the basic biological issues under the eye, fluid, fragile vessels, thinning support, often remain. And that is why low-cost remedies keep surviving in whispers, in forums, in old notes, in family habits, and in late-night searches from people who are tired of replacing one little jar after another and still seeing the same face in the morning. If you are still here, here is where the script turns practical. The common advice from people who use this oil is very simple. Find 100% pure, cold-pressed elderberry seed oil. The words matter because cold pressing is said to protect more of the delicate compounds that heat can damage. Once you have it, the routine is not dramatic. At night after washing your face, place a tiny drop on your ring finger, just one drop, then gently tap it along the orbital bone under each eye, moving from the inner corner outward toward the temple. Not rubbing, not dragging, just soft tapping. The reason people like this method is that it does two things at once. It spreads the oil in a thin layer, and it lightly stimulates the under eye area without pulling on fragile skin. That light tapping is often described as a simple way to encourage fluid movement before sleep, while the oil sits on the skin through the night. And here's the part many people need to hear. Do not judge it after 3 days. Do not judge it after 1 week. Most of the people who talk about better results say consistency matters more than intensity. They look at 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. That longer window makes sense if the goal is to support skin quality, reduce recurring puffiness, and slowly improve the look of discoloration. No one should expect a miracle by the next sunrise that changes their face forever. But many people are not looking for magic. They are looking for steady improvement, a little less swelling, a little softer darkness, a little more smoothness, something real enough to notice, something cheap enough to maintain, something simple enough to actually keep doing. For people with heavier puffiness, some routines pair the oil with a short drainage massage before application. Nothing harsh, usually just a couple of minutes with clean fingers, moving gently from the upper cheek area toward the temples in slow upward and outward strokes. The idea is to clear the path before adding the oil, so the skin is not just being coated, but supported by movement as well. That kind of massage is easy to overdo, so the advice is always the same. Use almost no pressure. The skin under the eyes is too thin for aggressive rubbing. Gentle works better, slow works better, consistent works better. Some people also pair the routine with a slightly raised sleep position because gravity matters more than most under-eye products like to admit. If fluid tends to collect overnight, then giving it less reason to pool makes sense. Others focus on irritation triggers like salt, lack of sleep, allergies, or chronic rubbing because no topical routine works well if the same swelling triggers are hitting the area every day. This is why the most realistic version of the story is not that one oil erases every eye bag overnight and ends the problem forever. The more believable version is that a cheap oil may help as one part of a bigger system: less irritation, better sleep habits, gentle drainage, and patient use. But of course, insat sampurd or system does not sell as well as a miracle. A routine does not sound as glamorous as a rescue serum. A basic bottle in a plain box does not sparkle under beauty counter lights. That is why these older remedies keep coming back through word of mouth instead of ad campaigns. They survive because they are usable. They survive because enough people try them and feel something changed. And that alone keeps the story alive. There are also the stories. You've probably seen them. Someone says they spent years moving from one premium eye cream to the next, getting a little temporary depuffing, a little shine, a little hydration, but never the kind of shift that made them stop buying. Then they try a simple plant oil for 2 or 3 months, and suddenly they say their morning swelling looks cut down, their tear trough darkness seems softer, or their under eye area reminds them of how it looked years earlier. Are stories proof? No, but stories shape beauty markets all the time. In fact, entire product lines are built on them. The difference is that when the story supports a luxury launch, it gets polished into marketing. When the story supports a cheap, natural option, it stays buried in forums, small channels, or quiet recommendation chains between people who are done paying premium prices for tiny jars. That is why this topic keeps pulling attention. It sits right at the point where old remedy, modern frustration, and beauty spending all meet. And there is something else underneath it. People are tired of feeling manipulated. They are tired of complicated packaging that makes ordinary skincare sound like a lab secret only a premium brand can unlock. They are tired of being sold the feeling of hope in 6-week portions. So when they hear about a $3 oil with a long history, a simple routine, and a bottle that does not vanish in a month, they listen. Even if they stay skeptical, they listen. And honestly, they should stay skeptical. That's healthy. But skepticism should go both ways. It should question miracle cures, yes. It should also question why some of the simplest options almost never get equal space in the conversation, even when people keep circling back to them decade after decade. Now let's talk honestly about the language around overnight. That word sells. It grabs attention. It makes people click, but it also creates the wrong expectation. Eye bags are not usually a one-cause problem, so they are rarely a one-night fix. Can some people wake up looking less puffy after using an oil and tapping gently under the eyes before bed? Sure, especially if the puffiness is mostly fluid and not deeper structural change. But that is not the same as saying the problem is erased. The stronger version of the claim may win the thumbnail battle, but the more useful message is slower and more real. This is about possible support, not instant perfection. It is about building a nightly habit that might help the area look calmer, smoother, and less heavy over time. And that kind of truth matters because when people expect miracles and do not get them, they bounce right back into the arms of the next expensive promise. The cycle resets, the wallet opens, the shelf gets crowded again. A better script is one that respects the audience enough to say this clearly. If you try a natural oil like this, think in phases, not fireworks. Look at the first month. Look at the second. Notice texture. Notice morning swelling. Notice whether the darkness looks softer in natural light. And if you have irritation, stop. If you have allergies, patch test first. If your under eye swelling is severe or sudden, that is not a beauty issue to guess at. That is something to talk to a qualified professional about. These are not glamorous disclaimers, but they make the story more solid. And a solid story lasts longer than hype. Keep watching, because this is where the whole message sharpens into something simple and actually usable. What makes this whole conversation so powerful is not just the oil itself, it is the contrast. On one side, there is a simple nighttime routine: cleanse, one drop, gentle tapping, patience. On the other side, there is a polished industry built on urgency, insecurity, and repeat purchase. One speaks in ordinary language. The other often speaks in complex wording, luxury signals, and fear of aging. One says, try this steadily and see what happens. The other says, you need a new launch, a stronger formula, a richer texture, a brighter effect, an upgraded solution. And yet many people end up in the same place they started, still searching, still spending, still wondering why the problem never fully leaves. That is why this story feels bigger than one oil. It taps into a deeper frustration with how beauty is sold. It reminds people that not every answer has to arrive in a silver cap and a premium box. Sometimes the useful thing is the unglamorous thing. Sometimes the quiet option survives precisely because it was never designed to be a spectacle. It just had to work well enough for real people to keep passing it on. That does not mean every old remedy is correct. It does not mean every cheap product is secretly amazing, but it does mean simple should not be ignored just because it is simple. And if there is a lesson hiding under all of this, it is that the audience is smarter than marketers assume. People can handle nuance. They can hear, this may help, but give it time. They can hear, this is support, not magic. They can hear, a low-cost option might deserve a fair try before you spend again. That message may not look as flashy on a shelf, but it lands hard when someone is staring into the mirror at 6 in the morning, wondering why nothing expensive ever seemed to stick. So, if you want the practical takeaway, here it is in the clearest form. If this oil interests you, look for pure, cold-pressed elderberry seed oil. Use a very small amount at night. Tap it gently under the eyes with your ring finger. Stay consistent. Avoid heavy pressure. Give it real time. Support the routine with better sleep, less rubbing, and attention to things that make puffiness worse. Watch for gradual change, not dramatic fantasy. And remember that under-eye issues can come from more than skincare alone, so no topical step should be treated like the answer to every cause. But if what you wanted was the truth beneath the headline, that truth is simple. The strongest part of this story is not that a $3 oil performs miracles while everyone else lies. The stronger part is that a very cheap, very plain option may deserve more attention than it gets, especially when the expensive side of the market has trained people to expect endless repurchase without lasting satisfaction. That is the real tension. That is why the story keeps spreading. Not because people are desperate to believe fairy tales, but because they are tired of being trapped in loops. And once they find a routine that feels grounded, old, practical, and affordable, they hold on to it. So yes, the answer may be sitting in a small dark bottle instead of a luxury jar. Yes, the idea may be older than modern beauty branding. And yes, the silence around simple options can make people suspicious, but the smartest way forward is still the calm way. Try carefully, watch closely, keep your expectations honest, and if this changed how you think about under-eye care, then you already got something valuable out of it before you ever opened a bottle. The elder tree is still here, the seeds are still being pressed, the oil is still easy to find if you know what you are looking for, and that might be the most striking part of the whole story. The answer, or at least part of the answer, may not be hidden because it is rare. It may be hidden because it is ordinary. It may be hidden because ordinary does not generate drama, and drama is what gets packaged, promoted, and sold back at a premium. But ordinary things have power, especially when they last, especially when they keep showing up in old records, modern routines, and repeated personal results. So, the next time someone tells you the only path to fresher looking under eyes is another tiny jar with another long label and another promise that runs out in 6 weeks, pause for a second. Think about fluid. Think about fragile vessels. Think about thinning skin. Think about whether the product in front of you is truly built to support those issues or simply built to keep the cycle moving. Then look at the simpler path. One drop, light tapping, night after night. No theater, no luxury language, no pressure, just a quiet routine with a long history and a very low price tag. Maybe that is why it keeps getting rediscovered. Maybe that is why people keep talking about it in the first place. Because beneath all the hype, beneath all the branding, beneath the endless promise of the next better jar, people still want the same thing they always wanted. Something simple, something honest, something they can actually use. And sometimes the biggest surprise is not that an old remedy still works for some people. The biggest surprise is how long it can sit in plain sight before the world decides to look at it again.